Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this regular scheduled meeting of the Freeport City Council. It is Monday, December 16th, 2024, 6 o'clock p.m. I declare that a quorum is present, and for the record, Councilman Pena is not present at the moment. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and ask Councilman Rosso to lead us in both the pledge and the invocation.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together once again. We pray, Lord, that you would bless this meeting. Let it be productive. We thank you for all our councilmen, our city manager, our mayor, and all the participants, Lord. Everyone under the sound of my voice. This is this season for joy, and we thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, and you may be seated. At this time, we have citizens' comments, and we have one citizen that has signed up to talk this evening, Miss Flora Green.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Flora Green. Like I stated, I'm the proud owner of two properties here in your city. One will be at 1611 North Avenue Q, and the other one will be 531 West Bradford. The continuation from last meeting was that I ordered a report from the Freeport Police Department. I received a report, which I know that what I was going to get because I was the one that called down there asking them to remove the officers from my property. And that was the only call that they had on there. The reason why was because Officer Hernandez and Officer Graham called each other on the telephone. It didn't go through dispatcher to get that call, okay? So, and they told Mr. Miller to meet them up at 1611 North Avenue Q, and that's where they met. And this report that I did get from Ms. Taylor after how many months? Almost a year to get the report, and this is what I got, okay? And it's still not reissued. And the police chief will not speak to me. This issue definitely needs to be addressed. These officers are out of control here in your city, okay? I've never seen a city that have officers out of control as much as Freeport, okay? And I have another property at 531 West Brazos, which I purchased from Miss Crane, Sandra Kane. And of course, that property was supposed to be me and my husband property to retire. But then again, he had a stroke. So that was changed to 1611, so that's where we at right now, okay? And of course, I moved over there, and it was a little old lady that had the house on the corner, and I had my property over there that was working on this house. And then of course, this little old lady, she passed away. So she sold this property to Mr. Gardo Campbell. Mr. Campbell came in with the property. There was road elevation, okay? There was all kind of equipment used from taxpayers' money to do this project with. Elevated the road to where all the water comes over on my property. And when it rains, it's all over there. His is high and dry, okay? And every time I try to do upgrades to my property, Mr. Gardo Campbell is always over there trying to intimidate me about getting the property, okay? I don't know what it is about, him intimidating me trying to get the property, okay? This is my property. I paid for it. And he should just stay out of it. And every time I get an electrician or anybody over there to work on my house, Mr. Gardo Campbell is always over there interrupting the people that are working on my house. Never get anything done because he's lying and telling them that I have electrical problems at my rental property. Now, for instance, the property that he raised the road, and of course he put a drain right there in the alley. Never seen a drain in Freeport in the alley. and I rode around this city quite a bit, and there's no drain in the alley. But over there, they got a drain in the alley. The people that are living there can't go through that alley because of the elevation of the thing, and it'll tear your vehicle up, okay? And of course, after he did that, Mr. Gardo removed all the lights that's supposed to be in front of my waterfront property, which I hadn't received yet, because he said I had to pay $100,000 invested into my property to get my waterfront property, and I still don't have it to this day. But Mr. Gardo have his waterfront property already. Why, I don't know. Because, and he closed off the roads down there, over there by Gerard's, okay? That's his, I guess, thing of doing whatever, you know, trying to keep the people out. He say drugs, but I don't think it was drugs there, because you know what? It was more drugs there when we had the boats ramps there, okay? There's no boat ramp there, and there's no drugs over there. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilman Pena has made it at 6:05.
Yeah, I was busy praying and then looking for guidance on how to expose your corruption, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We have next on the agenda our consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda. One is the action regarding the minutes of December 2nd, 2024. And the second would be action approving the date change for the second city council meeting in January 2025 to Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Gentlemen, is there any discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilman Pena being the nay. Next on the agenda, we have employee recognitions. Mr. Kelty, Mr. Petty.
Donna, Genesis, come on. This is for Employee of the Month. Genesis works in the HR department with Ms. Fisher, and Ms. Fisher wrote this about Genesis. Genesis has taken the lead on implementing our applicant tracking system. In addition to providing training to supervisors, directors who use the system, she manually entered over 60 applications that had been submitted prior to this system being implemented. She accomplishes all this with a positive attitude. She is an example of the values of responsibility, teamwork, innovation, initiative, and excellence, and she is an asset not only to the Human Resources Department, but to every employee and prospective employee of the city. So Genesis is Employee of the Month. You want your family up there? If you want a picture, now's the time.
Next, we have a presentation, the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award fiscal year 2024-2025. Ms. Hurst.
Good evening. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, also known as GFOA, presented a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to the City of Freeport for its 2024 through 2025 budget for the fiscal year that began October 1st of 2024. Staff submitted the 2024 to 2025 budget to the GFOA in October of 2024. In order to receive the budget award, the city has to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. In order to receive this award, a governmental unit must publish a budget document that meets program criteria as a policy document, as a financial plan, as an operations guide, and as a communications device. Budget documents are awarded by a panel of 3 reviewers and must be rated proficient in all 4 categories and in the 14 mandatory criteria within those categories to receive this award.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Agenda item 4A, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2898, appointing a board member to the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Board. Mr. Wade Dillon.
All right, good evening, Mayor Kane, City Council, Freeport residents. I'm here this evening as the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board needs a new board member, as their secretary, Ronnie Martin, resigned to pursue new business ventures. A vacancy notice was posted and 2 applications were received, one from former City Attorney Chris Duncan and one from Lon Sedal. As the Freeport City Charter clearly states on page 48, the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board is to consist of 5 Freeport residents and 4 non-residents. As Ronnie Martin is a Freeport resident, the only eligible applicant out of the 2 submissions was Lon Sedal, as Mr. Sedal is also a Freeport resident. This past Thursday, the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board held its monthly meeting. Amongst the agenda items was reviewing both applications and selecting one of the applicants for recommendation to City Council for appointment, with the understanding of what the city's charter outlines. In following the city's charter, the majority of the board selected Lon Sedal and recommend him this evening to Freeport City Council to be appointed to the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. Lon Sedal is in the crowd this evening. He is a lifetime Freeport resident who has an extensive work history with Dow and Brazoria County as a deputy sheriff and constable. Mr. Sedal has also served the city of Freeport as Freeport City Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem, and with the Freeport EDC.
Thank you, Wade. Council, I will make a motion to approve appointing Mr. Lon Sedal. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
I'll second.
Councilman Peany, you got the second first. Council, is there any discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Sedal. And get ready to work. Agenda item 4B, consideration and possible action to approve bylaws, excuse me, of the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. Mr. Wade Dillon.
All right, so every year, the Texas Main Street program requires a self-assessment from each of its participating communities to reach accreditation. Of the 80 Texas cities in the Main Street program, nearly half are accredited, whereas the other half are affiliates. The city of Freeport is currently an affiliate program under the Texas Main Street program and its parent organization, Main Street America. to increase our chances of reaching accreditation and opening ourselves up to more resources, I began studying our program and looking for areas that needed to be addressed. One of those was adopting bylaws so that the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board can better regulate itself and be seen as a legitimate body. In October, I visited Tina Israel, the Main Street manager for the city of Bay City, who recommended we adopt bylaws, and in doing so, freely shared with me the bylaws that the city of Bay City adopted for their Main Street Board. Bay City is our closest Main Street neighbor. In reading the document, you'll see that the bylaws are very cut and dry, with much of the language pulled from the city's charter. Technically, there is nothing new within the bylaws regarding the way the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board operates, and ideally can be revised in the future. As such, adopting these bylaws is a standard to increase our chances of accreditation, establishing legitimacy, and is a demonstration of the faith to the Texas Main Street program that the city of Freeport has in revitalizing our historic downtown. As a result, the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board approved of the bylaws unanimously this past Thursday and encourages City Council to adopt the bylaws for the board to increase Main Street chances of accreditation.
Thank you, Wade. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the bylaws of the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board as
What-
presented.
We have a motion to approve the bylaws as presented by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Council, any discussion or questions on this?
I have a couple of questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dillon, I'm curious, what other, I guess, requirements have you discovered or found in your research that will give Freeport a chance to go from affiliate to fully accredited?
One of those would be splitting the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. That way, the Historic Commission and the Main Street Board can operate as two separate bodies.
And how does that bring value to the city of Freeport?
How does splitting the two boards?
Yeah, in terms of their function and
The
purpose to the city?
Historic Commission would focus mainly on the preservation ordinances of the historic downtown district, whereas Main Street would largely encompass focusing, promotion, marketing, revitalizing downtown through recruitment of businesses, things of that nature.
Is there any redundancy between the Main Street, if it's divided this way as opposed to the historic? I mean, I appreciate the preservation. I think really that was kind of the thrust that the original Main Street development was created for the preservation of the buildings in downtown. But as we're looking to possibly modify that structure into the historic element and then, of course, the Main Street, one for preservation and the other one, it sounds like, is almost like economic development. Is that right? And does this seem like to me, well, at least it seems to me that this kind of overlaps into what EDC does? And can you help to differentiate what that might be? And if what that might mean for budgets?
There's a couple of questions there.
Yeah.
So on the Main Street side of things, tourism is very much a part of economic development. Historic Commission, they're going to be complementary of each other, but they would act separate from one another. I think that's the best way that I can describe those two.
So are you going to be the head of both the Historic Commission and the Main Street? Is that the plan?
We haven't discussed all that yet.
Okay.
And
Well, I'm just trying to understand that if we make this motion to change the structure of it, I'm just trying to understand how this is going to look budget-wise. And I'm also curious in terms of budget, if we've looked at any part of that and what kind of events and plans we're looking at in addition to what we have now. That's really what I'm trying to
At this point, it will not affect the budget.
Okay. I just want to know if that's the case coming from city staff.
So the Historic Commission would be a whole other board separate from the Main Street Board. These are voluntary boards. They are working boards to carry out the mission and scope of each board. I don't see what budget issues the Historic Commission could possibly have at this time. But eventually, for us to reach accreditation, that is one of the standards that we would have to meet to reach that point, is splitting it. And that is a standard that was not only set by the Texas Main Street program, but Main Street America as well. So it eventually, if we want to reach accreditation, we have to make that split. So I'm already talking with Texas Main Street program staff, their historic preservation officers, to see what that split is going to look like, what the language would look like, so that there is no redundancy between the two. But they would be complementary of each other in the fact that the Historic Commission would largely focus on preservation ordinance, things of that nature, not only focus on downtown, but the whole of Freeport as well.
All right, gentlemen. Councilman Pena, I appreciate your questions, but the agenda item is approving the bylaws. So if you have any other questions about the bylaws.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yep, that's fine. No further questions at this time. Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments?
Actually, let me reiterate this. So by accepting these bylaws, we're basically then laying I guess the foundation to go ahead and split Main Street. Is that right?
We're laying the foundation to become accredited.
And is this the only thing that's going to be in the way of us becoming accredited, is these bylaws?
He's already answered that.
Yeah? That's the only thing?
There's other standards to meet on incremental steps.
Okay.
All right,
I'll
Council.
get with him offline. Thank you.
All those in favor, state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilman Pena being the nay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item 4C, consideration and possible action to approve ordinance number 2024-2736, updating Article X, automobile records. Chief, let us have it.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We're proposing and everything to have an update to our record ordinance. The lots of pieces of the ordinance have not been updated since the 60s, 80s, 90s. The most recent update was made in 2011 to one section. We had visited with some other cities, reviewed their ordinances on what they had that was more up to date. Then we also went and met with the records company, obtained some feedback from them as well. And you can see on the proposal that we provided, everything in yellow is what we're looking to make additions to. Even just starting off the simplest thing, there was never any kind of distinguishment between light-duty record halls and heavy-duty record halls, and that's been something that has come about. And then also as far as, the record business being within so many miles, having so much of a response time. And so these are just some of the changes and everything that we're proposing, like I said, to have it more up to date.
Thank you, Chief. Council, I will entertain a motion. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Council, do you have any questions or comments for Chief?
Yes, Mayor, I do.
Yes, sir.
So, page 40, section 8-640, storage enclosure required. I see that you're striking out, such enclosure shall be of the wire mesh type at least 6 feet high with 3-strand barbed wire or better at the top. Why are you striking that?
Hang on, let me get to, you said page 40.
Page 40, or page 11 from the document, but it's page 40 in our agenda packet, section 8, 640.
Well, so that had been a kind of a standard that was done back in the 60s. And the state actually changed what the standards was set up for these record services. And so like depending on their location, depends on the standard that they have to have set up with it. There's is it the Lady Bird or Lady Johnson? I'm trying to remember one of the president's wives that had made a change over, like, you know, how wreckers had to, on certain roads and certain highways, had to have more of an enclosure where it wasn't the mesh type to be able to be visible and see-through, to not be an aesthetic sore, you know, if you will, for a community. And so the wire mesh and everything had been something that was just outdated and was no longer being practiced, and it wasn't in accordance with the state standards.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking this question is because there's a wrecker service that has a lot within a neighborhood. And I don't want them to take away any, because it's an eyesore.
Right.
And I would actually like to see something better than this and stated within that, such as a wooden fence, 10-foot tall, storm engineered, because of that, because it's within a neighborhood. I'm sure that people across the street don't want to see it.
Right.
I'm sure they don't want a kid to climb into it, get injured.
Absolutely.
It's also close to the MyCHN, so I'm sure they don't want to see that. And so I would like to see something added to this enclosure required in writing, even if it's what the state says. I would like to see it in writing in this section
Okay.
before I would even approve this. Because I want to be able to have something that we can hold them towards and say, look, we passed it, it's in writing, you have to go by it. And like I said, as long as it's what the state says, even if the state says it's something not as nice, I'd like to make it stronger, especially in our residential neighborhoods.
Okay. No, absolutely.
On that point, Councilman, if we pass this, I would assume our regular fence ordinance would trump whatever's on here. And someone might see if they can answer that question for me.
My thought is unless it's less than what the state standard is. Like state standard would, that be correct? And so I'd have to pull up the state standard in our ordinance to do all the apples comparison to know like which one is, we can go stricter than the state, but we can't go less than.
So I would like to see this see what the state standard is before I vote on it.
Okay.
And hopefully maybe we can table this to next meeting, have that information, and then make sure it's better. And I'm really concerned about within the residential communities.
No, absolutely.
Chief, I have one question. You have a group of wrecker services that you work with currently.
Yes, sir.
On this, it says for light duty, they have to be within 10 miles, and heavy duty, they have to be within 15 miles. Have you
Yes.
verified that those businesses are within?
So we do annual inspections every year and everything. In January, we have one of our sergeants that goes out and inspects the yard and everything, make sure they're still at the location, make sure all their units are up to state standard. He's the sergeant that does the commercial vehicle enforcement, so he's very familiar with as far as all the laws and everything that's associated with Class B and Class A, CDLs. So
I appreciate that, but the amount of distance.
Yes, that's part of
I
it.
want to make sure we
So
don't.
when they apply, they have to apply. You don't just become a wrecker for us. There's an actual application process, and when that application process, that's a part of the initial inspection, is documenting as far as what the distance is.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't eliminate someone that's been taking care of us in the past by having just the 10 and 15 miles.
No, all of our wrecker services that are currently serving us will still be able to continue to service us.
Okay.
I have some questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm just curious why this came about.
So when we had actually had a meeting earlier this year with our wrecker services, and they had brought up the discussion of needing to honestly increase their prices because the prices that had gone up regarding their rates of insurance, gas, diesel, and so when we went to look at the ordinance, and that was when we just noticed that overall the ordinance just hadn't been updated in a while, and felt like it was kind of a good time to go ahead and explore that right then.
So the enforcement of this particular standard of fencing, does that fall under the code department, which I believe you're the director of? Or does it fall under the police department's purview?
It would fall under both.
Okay, so you're able to then discern whether there's any overlap or any kind of conflict in terms of the language?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and
I
is there
mean,
any conflict currently?
As far as
It following the state law and that we're not falling below that minimum, and for that matter, contradicting anything that might be already in the code for fencing in the residential areas?
That's why I said I'd want to look back at the code for fencing,
Mm-hmm.
and just go ahead and look at it and compare it and everything to state right now to see if we're more stricter than,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just that we're equal. And so I can't remember, because to be honest, this was a month ago that we had looked through all this.
And so what will end up likely happening is if we ended up updating these ordinances for the fencing where it's a little more aesthetically pleasing to the community, that the cost of those improvements would be passed to those towing companies, is that right?
Yes, that would be correct. Now, technically speaking, whatever standard we set up now, and this would be then a attorney question, if they're already one of our approved wrecker services, would that change? Or would it just be the new wrecker service? Wouldn't the previous ones already be grandfathered in?
I need to look and see what the occupations code says.
Okay.
I know that the
I
state,
just thought about that,
I
I
know
was
the
like,
state has a whole series of chapters on the regulations in the administrative code, and then there's some basic provisions in the occupations code.
yeah, I didn't know if the ones that are in existence would be
Yeah, I mean, my inclination is, yeah, they would be grandfathered in.
grandfathered. Yeah, I just thought about that actually, so.
So for all of those that are being grandfathered, does it make any sense to try to make sure that, I guess, there are no conflicts?
Well, at the
I
end of
mean,
the day.
I can appreciate the idea that we don't have any conflicts, but I'm kind of disappointed if we're creating this ordinance with the idea that we're going to also help improve the aesthetic of the city, and then we're not able to enforce that new aesthetic standard.
And I want to be clear, the grandfathering would likely apply to, if, for instance, if the fencing requirements come from the zoning ordinance, then that's likely grandfathered in. If it is a public health and safety issue, that would not be grandfathered in.
Correct. Yeah, if the state turned around and changed.
That would be
theirs.
not, that wouldn't be what now? I didn't.
That would likely not be grandfathered in if it was a public health and safety issue.
So are we sure, and how many towing companies do we have here in the city of Freeport?
So for heavy haul, we only have 2, actually, because you have to have specialized equipment to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And then for our other rotation wreckers, we have 4. What's referred to just as your light and your standard vehicles.
And do we know if they're compliant at this point with the fencing as it relates to the residential ordinance?
I mean, everyone that had inspections back in January of this year
Mhm.
was in compliance of everything.
Okay.
I can't say like as of right now, like I said, we would be getting ready to do another inspection come January.
So I guess the legal question I would have is that what change would we need to make if we're trying to affect, in fact, the aesthetic of the fencing? Do we do it through this particular ordinance, or do we do it through planning and zoning so that there either is or is not grandfathering? And so if we're trying to affect that change, that to me means we're trying to remove the grandfathering clause. Is that accomplishable from a legal standard?
I mean, at the risk of guessing, because I don't know what's in the zoning ordinance, my instinct is that you don't remove grandfathering clauses from zoning ordinances. That's always going to be an issue. Whether you want to build in aesthetic requirements into the tow truck ordinance, I don't know that it would. I don't think you can just put it in one or the other and get out from underneath ultimately what is a zoning issue.
So it sounds to me like the 6 companies that are in Freeport.
It actually would still just be 4, because 2 of them that do the heavy haul also do the regular.
Okay, so the 4 companies that are in Freeport will be grandfathered either way. It's just a matter of whether there's any new companies that come in that will be required to fit the standard.
Potentially, that's what I was saying. I'd want to check on the grandfather thing, because I didn't think about that a while ago when Councilman Matamoros mentioned that, but after I had kind of thought for a minute, I was like, well, they might actually be grandfathered. So I don't know that for sure. That'd be something.
Well, the question
to
I
research.
posed was, is there any way to circumvent the grandfathering? And the attorney had said no.
Well, let's not accept as fact my off-the-cuff gut on these issues. I mean, we're kind of
Right, yeah, something to
Spitballing.
definitely, research to make sure.
Okay.
Well, Council, I will withdraw my motion to approve, and I will ask if Councilman Davis will do the same.
Yes.
And we will go ahead and table this item.
We'll
Get some answers
I was
for
gonna
us.
say, we'll
and-
do some checking and everything then on the grandfathering end, so that way we would know regarding the residential.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank y'all.
thank you.
Good discussion, gentlemen. Agenda item 4D, consideration and possible action of removal of alternate BOA board member, Ms. Chandra Marshall. Ms. Shelby Arahu.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
I do actually want to apologize. I did actually have a typo in her name is actually Shonda Marshall. I was actually going off of Brazoria County Appraisal District when I was spelling her name, so they do actually have her down as Chandra and BCAD. So I apologize.
When I read it, I thought I've been saying it wrong all
Yeah,
this
it's like,
time.
it got brought to my attention today, and I was like, oh my goodness. So yes, I do want to let you know it is Shonda and not Chandra Marshall. So on December 5th, the Board of Adjustments took action and voted to have Shonda Marshall removed as an alternate due to the lack of participation. The motion passed unanimously. The Board of Adjustment packets for each meeting were being delivered to the address we had on file for Ms. Marshall. Attempts were made to reach Ms. Marshall for an alternate due to possible quorum attendance, but our attempts to reach Ms. Marshall was unsuccessful. And Ms. Marshall has not attended a meeting in the past 6 months. So staff recommends that council take whatever action is necessary.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to remove Ms. Shonda Marshall as the alternate for the Board of Adjustments.
We have a motion by Councilman Matamoros to remove Ms. Marshall as alternate of the Board of Adjustments. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Council, is there any discussion needed on this item?
Yeah, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Is this the board where you have to be a resident of Freeport to be on?
Yes, sir.
So, and she had asked to already back off that board anyway, right?
I have a question as well.
Yes, sir.
What's the attendance requirement for the Board of Adjustments?
Attendance requirement as in terms of pretty much-
Absenteeism?
Yes, absenteeism. I'm not exactly completely 100% sure as in terms of being present, but as in terms of us, if we actually try to reach you in terms of contact and whatnot, we would actually like for you to be readily accessible to where we can actually contact you.
Yeah.
As
And
a
the-
council liaison, you cannot miss 3 meetings consecutively, or you're removed automatically.
Is that the rule
As in
Yes.
terms of that, I would,
for every board?
Yes.
Is it 3 in a row or 3 meetings in a year?
It should be 3 in a row.
3 in a row.
And has her absenteeism, or, I mean, I wasn't sure if it was lack of because you mentioned here was lack of participation,
Correct.
not absenteeism. I wasn't sure. I wanted to delineate what that difference was, number one.
Yeah.
But also, was any of her lack of participation, did it cause any of the meetings not to move forward?
we actually did reach out to her for, I believe it was the August meeting, and we did not have a quorum because we were not able to actually get the attendance.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. No further questions.
Yes.
Council, anyone else? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Shelby. This is for E, I guess. That threw me for a loop there. Consideration of possible action approving the windstorm insurance policy renewal.
Victor Insurance has provided us a windstorm and hail policy effective January 6th of 2025 for Texas Windstorm Insurance Association, also known as TWIA. Victor Insurance works in conjunction with the Texas Municipal Intergovernmental Risk Pool to shop for various carriers to provide the city with the best possible policies. The coverage premium is $70,743 with an unchanged 2% deductible. For this particular policy, the community house and rec center buildings are not included due to missing WPI 8 certificates for previous roofing jobs. We're continuing to work with our insurance agent to get those required documents needed to get those buildings covered again. And the cost for this was budgeted into the adopted budget.
Thank you. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the windstorm insurance policy renewal.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Is there any discussion or questions, council?
I have a handful of questions.
Yes, sir.
I guess the first question I had is just a little bit of housekeeping. Is it Miss Ferguson or Miss Hurst?
Hurst,
Okay, congratulations.
thank you.
I noticed the agenda had it as Ferguson still.
Yeah.
So I was like, new employee, I wasn't sure. The first question I have here is, are we currently covered
Yes, we are.
with TWIA?
Yes,
And is the rec center and the community house currently covered under the current policy?
yes.
And who is that policy with?
It's with the same. When they were gathering documentations for our renewal, it expires January 6th of 2025. Well, I guess January 5th. But that's when they discovered that those documents were missing. And these are from roofing jobs from like 2012,
Okay. So when they covered us, when was the last time we had the renewal?
2024, January 2024.
Oh, so they do it every year?
Mhm.
And so they covered us last year with, I guess, an oversight of the documentation?
Yes,
But that documentation was not on file and not discovered by city staff to know that we'd be needing that for TWIA, right? Because it's my understanding that every maybe residential and commercial roof in the city requires that TWIA, mostly in coastal cities. So I'm just curious, how long has that certificate been out of compliance? Do we know?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I do know that the rec center is currently having roof work done after Beryl anyways, so
Yeah.
there's a new certificate coming.
But had we tried to make a claim on those, on the roofs, would we have been covered?
We were covered.
We were
with the
covered?
Beryl stuff.
Despite
yes.
the fact that we didn't have that certificate?
Yes.
Okay. I just know that the insurance companies, I guess the better question is, so we actually did incur some damages to those roofs, and we did get those covered, right?
Correct.
Great. We got one by them. And I guess the next question I would say is that, what was the budget on this particular item here?
I don't have the line item in front of me, but I can get it.
All right. Do you recall if it was an increase or if it was at the same rate?
I believe it was maybe like $1,500 more.
Okay. And is that going to increase even further once we add the TWIA to the rec center and the community house?
I can't answer that for sure, but I would expect that it would.
And so, should we wait till we have all of that so we know what we're passing and then just do it all in one fell swoop? Or would we need a budget amendment at that point?
No, I would still recommend approving what we have now so that the majority of our buildings are covered, since this does expire January 5th.
That makes sense. All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council, any other questions? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, 4F, consideration and possible action awarding the annual fuel and alternative fuel contract to Midtex Oil LP and authorizing the city manager to sign the contract. Ms. Hurst.
Staff recommends awarding the annual fuel and alternative fuel contract to Midtex Oil and authorizing the city manager to sign the contract. Staff advertised RFP 2024-16 titled Fuel Services for the annual contract to provide fuel and alternative fuel products to the city fueling station on November 1st, 2024 and November 8th, 2024. The city only received 2 responses, but they did not receive a response that included pricing for both fuel and alternative fuel. Staff declined those responses and advertised RFP number 2024-17 titled Fuel Rebid RFP for the annual contract to provide fuel and alternative fuel products to the city fueling station on November 26, 2024 and December 3rd of 2024. The city received 1 response from Midtex Oil. After an analysis, it was determined that fuel costs were lower with them, and staff would like to continue using this company for the next year. Staff advertised RFP number 202. Sorry, I was making sure, but that just got, I guess, copied and pasted in there twice. All the RFP documents can be found on our city website under the purchasing department section. Fuel usage was included in the adopted budget for 2024 through 2025 and attached as a fuel bid analysis.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the annual, awarding the annual fuel and alternative fuel contract to Midtex Oil LP and authorize the city manager to sign that contract.
Thank you, Councilman. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Matamoros to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments, gentlemen?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hurst, you said there was a RFP on November 26th and December 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Or was it November 1st and November 8th?
There was November 1st and November 8th was the first time we went out for bid. We went out again November 26th and December 3rd.
And where are those posted, you said? On the purchasing department section of the city website?
Yes.
I was trying to figure out where that might be because I was curious if that is under the section of public notices. Is that it?
When you click purchasing, I think Toby has it routed to the public notices page, yes.
So I see government, business, residents, departments. Where should I be looking at?
Up top under departments, there should be a purchasing option.
And that's where all the RFPs are located?
Yes, sir.
And the company that we're looking at here, is our current oil provider and fuel provider?
Yes, sir.
And are they going up in their rates and their costs to us?
From what I saw, the amount per gallon for the fuel went down, and then the cost for the fuel alternatives did go up a little bit.
Went down almost $1 or just over $1 is
Yeah,
what I'd
it-
read. I
it
was
was
just
a
trying to look for that in
Significant
here.
Decrease.
And we only received 2 responses after the December 3rd?
After the December 3rd, just one.
Okay. And I guess the question I also have here is that under the current contract, when did that terminate? At the end of this year, fiscal year, or this month,
It actually terminated in August.
in August? So we've been going month to month
Yes,
on the rates on the previous contract, or?
yes, still
At
being
market.
billed by the previous contract rates.
And so if we put out the bid out for the 3rd, what was the difference between the bid proposal that went out on the November 1st and 8th and the one that went out on December 3rd? Was there any difference in its,
No, sir, it was the
Presentation?
same bid. We just needed more responses for a complete response with pricing for everything we asked for.
did we have a deadline on that? Do we have a timetable for that? When we
Yeah.
had posted it, was there going to be like a 30-day window or 60-day window?
It's 2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks?
Mhm.
Okay. So December 3rd, and they responded,
We closed the bid on December 6th. No,
what I'm really getting at is, number one, if we have 2 weeks and we have a minimum number of days, that we afford the city the opportunity to get as many bids through that window versus the first one that comes through. And for that matter, I'm always interested in extending it to at least a minimum of 30 days. But we're at 2 weeks, which have been 14 days. If we got that,
we closed it on the 10th.
close it on the 10th.
But yes, it's pretty standard for municipalities to post for 2 weeks.
So that if we post it on the 3rd and we close it on the 10th, that tells me that it was only open for 7 days.
We first bid it on November 26th.
Okay, so you're telling me we're going off the November 26th date?
Yes, you go
1
off the
o'clock.
first time you advertise it.
Does the clock reset every time you post the RFP?
No,
The clock starts only at the initial one?
yes,
So would we say also then, instead of November 26th, would it be November 1st and 8th?
yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand the methodologies that you're employing here and what rules you're following so that I can understand them, and/or for that matter, help to identify any problems. So we received that bid on the 7th, that single bid
On the 10th.
on the 10th? And so at this point, we're only operating with one bid, which is the incumbent company. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. No further questions, thank you.
Council, anyone else? Yeah, I'm looking forward to the dollar savings per gallon. With that, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Agenda item 4G, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2899 to update the Texas Gulf Bank signatories. Ms. Hurst.
Okay, so for starters, by the next council meeting, Toby and I will have my name correct in civic clerk so that it won't be so confusing, but I did change my name in the middle of this last 2 weeks, so it kind of created a little bit of confusion. So with that being said, staff recommends approval of the resolution and the signing of the Texas Gulf Bank signatory form. The authorized signatories for the city's Texas Gulf Bank account requires updating to reflect a name change due to marriage. This resolution will update my name from Ashley Ferguson to Ashley Hurst. This update will leave the signatories listed as Jerry Kane, Mayor, Lance Petty, City Manager, and Ashley Hurst, Finance Director. Texas Gulf Bank does require the resolution designating which city officials are authorized to open accounts, sign checks, and other transactions for city funds. A letter is also required to make changes for those signatories.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-2899.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Well, I'll second, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councilman Davis. I wouldn't think there's much discussion needed on this, but I'll ask the question anyway. Is there any comments or questions needed?
Yeah, I got a question. No.
Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 4H is not in my agenda packet. Consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2900 to update text pool signatories. Ms. Hurst.
This one's going to be the exact same that I just read as the Texas Gulf Bank. Text pool requires the form to be signed in the resolution to update my name to reflect the marriage. It'll update it from Ashley Ferguson to Ashley Hurst. And this one will leave 2 employees on the account, Mr. Petty and myself, listed as representatives with full access, and then it still leaves the mayor with inquiry access only.
Council, I will call or entertain a motion. Can't call
Mayor,
votes yet.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-2900.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
A second by Councilman Rosso. Councilman Davis, do you have another question on this?
Yeah. You got married before Christmas?
I did.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you.
All right, council, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Agenda item 4I, consideration and possible action to approve the contract for Public Works uniform services to UniFirst and authorize the city manager to sign the contract. Mr. Rudy Regal is not
He
here.
is not here. He's handling some personal issues tonight, so I'll take care of this for him. Staff recommends awarding the contract to UniFirst for uniform services for the Public Works Department. We received a proposal from UniFirst to compare the current vendor pricing, which is currently under contract to provide services to the Public Works Department, that expires in March of 2025. After receiving the proposal from UniFirst and comparing our current service and rates, there will be substantial savings by selecting UniFirst as the vendor to move forward with. Our current vendor for uniform services for the Public Works Department, as I said, expires March of 2025. A non-renewal notice was issued to the current vendor in November. This notice was required due to the automatic renewal clause that would have renewed the current contract for an additional 5 years without the required notice. UniFirst proposal is attached in your packet along with a comparison of fees associated with the uniform services. UniFirst is part of the Buy Board Co-op purchasing program and does not require a bid process.
Thank you, Mr. Petty. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll I'll make a motion to approve the contract for the Public Works Uniform Services to UniFirst and authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Gentlemen, any questions or comments on this?
I have a quick question here.
Yes, sir.
UniFirst is a part of which group again?
By board.
I'm sorry?
Buy board?
By board.
Yes, sir.
And so, I've mentioned this before, and I'll reiterate again here, that despite we have contractors that are on the buy board list, that I'd like for us to at least seek out additional bids. And so, give our city a chance to make even those guys on the buy board, basically give us a competitive bid versus thinking that it's going to be a slam dunk.
Well, those co-ops, they're bid out every year themselves.
I understand.
By law, they have to do that. So when they give you pricing, there's no negotiating your pricing. It's a set price, and they bid those out yearly.
Well, I'm just curious if there's anybody else that would be able to get in there that's not on the buy pool that might be able to give us a better deal. And that's really, if they can't, they can't. I'm just always curious to make sure we ask the question. If we don't ask, we won't know. The second question I have here is, what was the budget for this, and did it fall in budget?
I don't know the exact budget number, but it's gonna come in way under, because we're saving 50% of what we're paying now.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
I guess the other question, this went out for an RFP?
No, sir,
No,
because it's part
because
of the
of the budget,
co-op
okay.
purchasing.
Got it. Thank you. And when will it expire?
Not required.
And when will it expire? I'm sorry.
The current one expires March of 2025.
Okay. Thank you. Any reason why we're doing it here in December?
Because it takes, once you send your non-renewal letter and you select a different vendor, there's a setup time where they have to get all the uniform sized, get them ordered, get all the stitching done on them and everything else. So it takes them a little bit. That way you're not stuck without uniforms for a month or two.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petty. Council, I will call the vote. All those in favor, state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of your regularly scheduled meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for your time.